Hi, welcome to YIPP. Come in. So, welcome to our studio in Amsterdam. Here at YIPP we make interactives, games and immersive spaces for museums, science centers and experience centers. And in every project we try to inspire curiosity in the museum visitor around all kinds of different subjects. And it can be from history to science, quantum mechanics to sports or space exploration. You name it, we've done it. So here's our team. Every day they're working and collaborating to find new ways of innovative approaches to inspire museum visitors. And because our field is always in development, we have also built a prototyping space and a lab inside of our own office. Today, we're going to talk about immersive experiences.
We had a chat with a couple of our clients at different museums and institutions. We asked them, what are your most pressing questions when setting up an immersive projection space at your institution? The questions are in this hat. Let's see what we're going to answer first. How is what you guys make different from ticketed large-scale immersive projections? Fantastic question.
Yeah, I agree. Let's ask the team.
Well, the difference, of course, is interaction. We involve the visitor as they interact with the immersive space. Sometimes these can be more linear narratives and sometimes they are more open-ended. But the important part is that we put the visitor at the center of this experience so they can engage and be educated at their own pace.
One word, engagement. An immersive projection can look amazing, but it's always distant, less personal. If we add the element of interaction, then you change from an observer to a participant, and that will create a way stronger connection to the content.
Immersive is often seen as low in content, rich in aesthetic experience. Why does this communicate my learning goal better than a different medium?
Of course, in a content screen you can add way more in-depth information and way more content. But for people who come first to this museum and are not really already engaged with the subject yet, it's not really inviting people to go into this content. So an immersive experience delivers the content through the body and through the senses, rather than just through information and explanation.
That depends on your learning goal, of course. Immersive spaces are designed by definition to immerse visitors in an environment. And if your learning goal involves immersing people in a topic and having them interact with it in an intuitive way, then a technology like this might very well be a good fit for your exhibition.
I think it totally depends on the story you would like to tell. But in these worlds that we can create, we can show so much visually. And if you can explore that, I think that's very powerful. So what I like best about these immersive worlds is that we can show different perspectives. And you can show things that you cannot see in everyday life. So for instance, we could play around with time and we could speed up time. So you could show what effects the different seasons may have on an ecosystem. Or on the other hand, you could slow down time and show a fast production process in a factory to enhance understanding of what's actually happening there. You can also change the perspective like to a bird's eye view and like, create an overview for people. Or show what an ant sees when he's walking through a big world. You can zoom into details and show things that you might not see with the naked eye. And you can place your audience in different worlds, like underground, underwater, or in outer space, and in outer-worldly environments. Exploring that angle, or those different angles, I think is very powerful and creates a better understanding for your topic.
So, for example, we made a mammoth hunt interactive for the Drents Museum, where you go with a group of Neanderthals and hunt a mammoth. And you learn that they do this really in a coordinated way. And you have, for example, a tree trunk that you hide behind, and a spear that you really use to drive the mammoth back. And that just creates another layer of physical interaction and immersion with the content. And what we also did there is that we used collection in the installation. So there's, at the end, when you've hunted down the mammoth, the projection kind of magically turns into this display where you can see the actual mammoth bones lying from thousands of years back. And you can also spot the markings of the spears that Neanderthals used. And that way you really get a historical connection with those objects.
What are the spatial requirements? Are small immersive spaces also possible, as our space is limited?
Well, we've created some diverse projects, either in basements or even completely built rooms. But there are some practical guidelines. Because we work with projectors, we like to keep daylight out. We mount sensors usually on the ceiling. So at least there needs to be the height so people can't touch the sensors or the projectors. But how that is mounted can be dependent on the room itself. Sometimes you can hang things from the ceiling. Otherwise, you can use a truss system. Depends on the room.
I think this is a question of what is still perceived as being immersive in a way. That said, we have created spaces at around 20 to 25 square meters. They're still immersive, they feel very intimate, and there's still room for visitor interaction.
I think the image that people have is these big immersive spaces where people stand back and watch, but that doesn't have to be the case. Small and intimate immersive spaces can definitely work. We want people to engage, we want people to get close up. You can really fill a room if you want. And as long as you give the interactions the breathing space that they need, you'll be fine.
What is the visitor experience like? Is it free flow? How many degrees of freedom does the experience offer?
We like to design these worlds that you can just explore freely, that are things happening, and you can just walk around in, and there are discoveries to be made. And this happens on several levels, different levels. So on the first level, you might just come in and experience this world, and we make things happening. So in the forest in Gapia, Mexico, for instance, there was this day-night cycle. So the world gradually changes over time. The sun rises, it comes up, animals come out, birds appear. And then the sun sets and the shimmer sets in, and you have fireflies coming out. And all this time you can just walk around and immerse yourself in this. And this can feel very nice for people to adjust to that situation, because it can be overwhelming to enter this immersive space. Yeah, then the second level of interaction is just caused by your presence. So just by being there and walking around, like flowers might appear on the floor. And we see this works very well for small kids, for toddlers who are very focused on what's happening on the floor around them. And they start playing with it. But we also see that it works for adults who feel maybe a bit uncomfortable with interacting, and we nudge them to start playing and start interacting with this world. Then the third level of interaction, that is more deliberate interaction. So now you discover this world has an effect on you, and you have an effect on this world, so you can start using your arms and maybe push leaves out of the way or fog and discover things that are hidden behind that. We can also give you a magnifying glass so you can enlarge certain details and discover insects on leaves, or we could maybe attach a light, and so you can shine a light on things that were first not visible. And we see that this type of interaction is so playful and so powerful that people have this intrinsic motivation just to discover everything there is to discover. So it doesn't need more gameplay than that, just that playful interaction and response of the visual world. On the fourth level, We design an interaction that shows more cause and effect and takes a little bit more planning and collaboration. We invite people to work together and think a bit deeper about what's happening, what their actions cause. So for instance, think about seed pods that you can plant in a world and plants come out, but you need to give them water, provide resources. And this way, if you work together, you can create a forest. Yeah, with these levels, it's up to visitors how long and how deep they get into this interaction. And we see that works very well to explore these worlds freely. It really motivates people to learn more and to discover more.
We have designed and developed both more linear and more open-ended immersive spaces. The game behind me, the canoe game, is an excellent example of something more linear. It has a storyline, a voiceover, but it's decidedly not a movie. The visitor is paddling and hunting game. A more open-ended example is the forest that we did at YIPP. It's almost completely open-ended. Besides a day-night cycle, the visitor can roam around the room and experience things at their own pace.
So one of the great advantages of immersive spaces is that you can experience them together. You almost always visit a museum together, so it's really natural for a group of museum visitors, be it a family or a school group, to enter a space and just start exploring and interacting together as well. And you try to enable that also by using physical objects that people can manipulate and interact with together. And there's no devices in between, so nothing interfering with just naturally interacting as a group.
What is the technical setup like?
Well, it really depends on the space. We'll look for the best solution. But a general guideline is for projectors on the wall. We will use short throw projectors. This will minimize the amount of shadow. And for the floor, we often use longer throw lenses, as this works better for the floor. But there's always a limit in ceiling height. Luckily, we can play around with lens shift and blending, and that way we can minimize the perceived shadow. Well, when the room is known, we make a 3D model in which we can virtually place all the projectors, see about the projection shadows, what kind of lens we need, if we have the height required. Then for the sensors, we can see where we want to place them. We can see how many we need, if the tracking is going to be accurate all over the place. This way we can advise an AV integrator and the client what kind of hardware they would need, and then they can see what they can source locally.
These cameras are mounted on the wall and on the ceiling, and we stitch them together to create a cohesive representation of the entire space with the people in them. We then look at what's happening in the scene, identify the people, and all of this happens within tenths of a second, so that everything happens in real time and as low as latency as possible. We have developed our own technology that can track people in various ways. We can track the delicate hand movements of individual people as they interact with the room around them. We can track individuals as they move throughout a space, or we can track entire groups of people. Here's an example. This is a canoe pedal that we've made for the game that you see right behind me. It's a fairly simple thing. It's a stick with stickers on it, but because of its simplicity, it's very robust. The camera that's mounted in the ceiling looks at these dots and is able to figure out where it is in space, and so people can aim with it left and right. But it means there's no smart technology in here. It doesn't have to be charged. It doesn't have to be serviced or maintained. So visitors can be in their canoe and paddle and aim all around the scene, and we haven't had yet to do any maintenance on it.
For Technopolis in Mechelen, we built the Partner Zone, which is an immersive exhibition framework, if you will. There is an exhibition about the North Sea in it now, with all kinds of projectors and interactive elements. And it's possible to update that with an entire new exhibition about an entire different subject. When you do that, you don't have to change the hardware, don't have to change the furniture, almost. And you can focus entirely on building this new exhibition and making digital content for that, which saves you, of course, the hassle of changing out the hardware One of our oldest exhibitions, it's almost 10 years back, was Bos, an interactive forest that we did for the Natural History Museum in Brabant. And what we did there is that it changes with the seasons. So in wintertime, it's winter, and then it turns to spring and to summer. We even put in literal Easter eggs in spring, where the eggs are painted in the nests of the birds. This is another way of providing more value to visitors and also driving return visits.
What are your biggest learnings from past projects?
Yeah, I remember when we created Zeekracht, it was in COVID time and we couldn't properly test with target groups. We tested on a very small scale, but only with our own people. So we really missed the power of experiencing and working with children, working with groups to see how our games work. So that was something we absolutely missed. Now, what we did with Zeekracht is we wanted to tell a lot. There was a lot of information, so we used text. And we designed these games with different steps where we explained what you needed to do in words. They were also made in 3 languages. I think basically we took the flow that we normally would design on a screen in a more intimate setting and placed it in an immersive world. And we noticed that that didn't work as well. So over the years we learned to develop more intuitive games with less text and explain things more visually. So people learn by doing and by experiencing.
At GAPI we came to the conclusion that we cannot have all the information at the immersive space. So we had a lot of content, but the immersive space was really the place where people can fall in love with the subject. And afterwards, we had a spot where you can dive into the content. So next to the immersive space, we put a content screen where we had more information, more in-depth information about what you learned there. And that really helped. In the immersive space, people could look for some animals and search for it. And afterwards, in the content screen, they could find more about it. Why is it endangered, or why is it an endemical sort?
From a technical perspective, we started playing around with paint. We noticed that with gray paint, it really reduced the amount of light spill, which really helped out because else details would be washed out in the dark. And the second thing that we noticed a lot is with big rooms, there's a lot of reverb, a lot of echo, and some sound treatment on the ceiling already goes a long way into treating that.
Will this be enjoyable for everyone?
That's a very good question. We try to make our immersive spaces as inclusive as possible. So the tracking system is set up in such a way that it tracks short people or tall people or wheelchair users. So whether you're a child or an adult, it doesn't matter. It's just your interaction has an effect on the digital world. And we design our games and spaces in such a way that that it works for those different target groups. We always test our games with different target groups in mind. So we have this dedicated space in Amsterdam in our studio where we can project. I'm standing in it right now. And we can project and play our games here and invite people to play. And we've learned a lot over the years. So to be more inclusive, for instance, also for visually impaired people, we know that it's very important to work with audio and with audio feedback. And we also really prefer to include tactile elements, so you can touch and feel things, which is just essential if you cannot see very well. Yeah, we always prefer to include tactile elements in our work because we think it's beneficial for a very broad target group. We think learning happens when you combine different senses. There's this beautiful quote from Maria Montessori where she says, "What the hand touches, the mind remembers." And I think that really encapsulates that Montessori idea of using hands-on tactile experiences and seeing them as essential for cognitive development. So learning through touch and manipulation helps children internalize ideas much more deeply than passive listening or memorization. And I think at YIPP we really relate to that and we see the power of it. Including tactile elements, you can also combine the virtual and the physical worlds very well, and it creates a sense of wonder. It's really magical if you have something in the real world that you can affect the digital world.
What about maintenance?
Maintenance is usually required when sensors and projectors get out of alignment, but most of that we can calibrate and correct from the office here. We use TeamViewer to log into the computers remotely, and then it's usually a matter of nudging a few things here and there to get them back into alignment.
We often create installations that require very low maintenance, very easy maintenance. So staff on site can do most of the, for instance, calibrations with the projectors. For more complex installations, the AV integrator will usually come 2 or 3 times a year to do some more complex calibrations.
And what does it cost?
The numbers, well, everything we do is a joint effort. So the client is involved, a fit-out contractor, AV integrator, many more companies. A ballpark figure though, for what we do, small installations, about 20 square meters, I'd say interactive software was around 50,000 euros. The hardware around 30,000 euros. For the large installations we've done, so we're talking a serious setup with 175 square meters, around 20 projectors, maybe 35 depth cameras. The amount for interactive software was 500,000 euros, and the amount for hardware was about equal that, so about 500,000 euros. Most projects we do fall somewhere in between those large and small numbers.
All right, that was it. The hat's empty, the questions are answered. If you want to know more, then please get in touch. Thank you.